Well, good evening, Council, members of the public. We'll begin this evening with a public hearing, so I will now call that to order, being the Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. First up on the agenda, 2.1, adoption of the agenda for this evening's public hearing, moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Pearson. Should be no additions. All in favor? It's carried. I do have a public hearing statement to read aloud under 3.1 around conduct in a public hearing. This public hearing, dated March 14th, being held in the Village of Valemount Council Chambers, 735 Cranberry Lake Road, Valemount, BC, is being convened pursuant to the terms of the Local Government Act prior to consideration of one item. Number one being a temporary use permit 2301, a renewal of a temporary use permit 2105 to permit a temporary residential structure at 1070 14th Ave. At a public hearing, any person present who believes they are affected by a matter being considered shall be given an opportunity to be heard on the matter contained in the proposal. Members of the public speaking to the proposal should, at the appropriate time, commence your address to this council by stating your name and simply your area of residence. We do not need your address. At which time you may give us the benefit of your views concerning the proposal. Anyone who deems their interests are affected shall be given the opportunity to be heard at this meeting. No one will be or should feel discouraged or prevented from making their views known. All who submit comments at this public hearing will restrict their remarks to the matters contained in the proposal, and it is my responsibility as chairperson of this meeting to ensure that all remarks are so restricted. At the conclusion of a public hearing, council may, without further notice, give whatever effect council believes proper to the representation made at the hearing. And for temporary use permit 2301, we do have a presentation by staff. We have our planner, Ms. Krista Eddy, under 4.1. Floor is yours.
Good evening. So tonight's public hearing is in regards to one item, temporary use permit 2301, requesting to permit one RV to be used as a residence for a period of 3 years. The application proposes to allow a recreational vehicle to be parked on the property at 1070 14th Avenue. Excuse me. The property is legally described as Parcel A, Plan PGP 26762, District Lot 7355, Land District 05, being a consolidation of Lots 8 and 9, CCA 4751352. Temporary Use Permit 2301 is the renewal of Temporary Use Permit 2105 that was approved for a period of 1 year. The original unit approved with Temporary Use Permit 2105 still remains on the property, and there have been no complaints or concerns from neighboring properties or staff in the time that the RV has been in place. The application satisfies all requirements outlined in Temporary Residential Structure Policy 83, including water, sewer, and power servicing, as well as garbage disposal and structure location. The RV has been approved by the building inspector to have the CSA Z240 certification. At the regular council meeting of February 14th, council gave initial approval of the proposed temporary use permit. Since then, adjacent property owners have been notified of and affected residents have been invited to provide feedback via written submissions or at tonight's public hearing.
And under 4.2, Ms. Eddy, have there been any written submissions received?
As of noon today, we received no written submissions.
Thank you. Is the proponent present to present? Are there any verbal presentations from the public? Are there any questions from council to staff or the proponent? And now adjourn this public hearing. Moving on to the regular meeting of Tuesday, March 14th, 2023. I now call this meeting to order. Under 2.1, we do need to adopt this evening's agenda. Moved by Councillor MacLean, second by Councillor Mulyk. Are there any additions, deletions, amendments? All in favor? It's carried. Under 3.1, need a mover to adopt the minutes of the previous regular council meeting being February 28th, 2023. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Pearson. Are there any errors or omissions arising? Hearing none, all in favor? It's carried. Under 4.1, we do have a delegation this evening from the Valemount RCMP to provide an update on services. With us tonight is Sergeant Robert Dean and Corporal Devin Reed. Please, whomever is presenting to join us at the podium, and the floor is yours, sir.
Well, I just wanted to give Mayor and Council an update on staffing levels within Valemount. We are currently fully staffed. We have one member who is still on graduated return to work status. I'm not sure, I brought Corporal Devin Reed along. He's been here for over a year, but because of COVID restriction, I didn't know if anyone knew him. There's three of us that look quite similar now, bald hair, beards. So I'm Bob, that's Devin, and the other guy is Nick. But moving forward with this, we have had a very productive year in regards to initiatives that we have done within the community. The two most notable ones would have been Project Windstorm, which occurred in Valemount on September 19th to the 22nd. And then the second project of Hailstorm, which occurred on January 14th to the 17th. These are initiatives set forth by the Traffic Support Unit. They used to be called the Roving Traffic Unit. They use drug interdiction dogs, and they bring along other variable members that have expertise in detecting drugs use, impaired driving, and drug interdiction work. I couldn't locate the stats for Project Windstorm in September, but I do have the Hailstorm stats, which are fairly impressive. They've only had 4 members in town, and 2 were being mentored by their unit. And I was surprised to see that they actually made some substantial seizures. No drugs this time, but they did unstamped tobacco, which was surprising to me. They issued 90 violation tickets, 84 warnings, defective vehicles, a violation ticket, and highway patrol that's not very productive. They can just sit and do nothing, and then if their supervisor's off, I have no say in it, because it's weird. Highway patrol is its own entity to the RCMP, even though we wear the same uniform. Wow. Like BC Highway Patrol, now they've called themselves, instead of E-Division Traffic Services, they've gone back to the BC Highway Patrol, and GD has no say over them, and traffic has no say over GD, right? No. So wow. We work in the best of both worlds, where technically, if you look at our org chart, our organizational chart, I'm the only traffic member here. The rest are general duty. It's just to keep everyone happy in regards to manpower and resourcing and all this other stuff. So
awesome. Nice little 12-year pilot project.
Yeah, it's still going. Great.
Any other questions, comments? Well, again, Sergeant Dean.
with the up to 80% of the funding that we're seeking here.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
But thank you.
There we are. All in favor? It's carried. And then stemming from a public hearing earlier, under 8.3, to consider a temporary use permit 2301, a renewal of TUP 2105 for 1070 14th Ave, legally described as parcel A being a consolidated 4751352, district lot 7355, district Caribou District Plan, Caribou District Plan 26762, proposing the renewal of the temporary use permit for a period of 3 years, seeking approval. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Under bylaws and policies, 9.1, information access and privacy protection policy number 90, and that it be approved by council. Moved by Councillor Pearson, seconded by Councillor Mulyk. Discussion. Tracking privacy now. Now and to the future. All in favor? It's carried. 9.2, encroachment onto village-owned land, policy number 91, 2023, that it be approved by council. Moved by Councillor Blanchette, second by Councillor Pearson. Discussion. Councillor Pearson.
So in reading this, this will apply to all the current encroachments. Those landowners will be approached to come into an agreement. Since we learned last year or the year before that much of the frontage along Caris is somewhat misrepresented. So just confirming.
To the councilor's question, I believe there's a number of arrangements that have been made over the years in Valemount that we would like to modernize and bring under this policy. I'm not aware in that instance on the Caris Drive if those are part of those past agreements that we are aware of. We would be looking to speak to anybody that has an outstanding encroachment issue or any more that we become aware of that are historical and try to work out an agreement in compliance with the latest policy. And then we would use this also going forward for all those that we see from this point forward. It's recognized in the policy that from time to time there may be encroachments that are beneficial or that we want for one reason or another. They may not inherently be negative. So this just gives us a way of cataloging and doing the record keeping on those, to your point, backwards as well as forward.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? All in favor? It's carried. Didn't recognize any new business. Is there a notice of motion any folks would like to bring forward? Councillor Pearson.
Yeah. So I'd just like to give notice that I will be bringing a motion forward next meeting, asking that we look at a working group be established to discuss possible solutions to the issues surrounding Caris Drive traffic situations and parking.
Seconded by Councillor Mulyk. That in support of Councillor Pearson's motion, notice of motion to be brought forward around the issues surrounding traffic on Caris Drive. Discussion on the notice of motion. All in favor? It's carried. Thank you very much. We do have time this evening for public comment. Are there any public comments this evening?
Councilor reports, I believe.
Item 12.
Oh, I didn't want to do council reports tonight because I can't find mine. Let's go back to 12 council reports. And while you...
So you did stuff.
we'll start at the, right at the front. Yeah.
March 2nd, we had our personal health record meeting, and we also had a budget review just with staff, just to sort of know what money we have and where it's going to go, hopefully. On the 5th, we had the CBT grant presentations at the high school, and they were really good applications. It was a good afternoon. Staff did very well. It seemed to run smoothly. So thank you for all those there and for all of the applicants and the CBT committee. Good work. And on the 13th, we had another budget overview to put everything into place, to have a look at everything. That's it.
Great, thank you. Councillor Mulyk.
On March 5th, I attended the CBT Ready Grant presentations at the high school as well. It was a very good afternoon. I was very impressed with the displays. I was most impressed with the enthusiasm of some of the proponents and the knowledge. You know, that was a very worthwhile afternoon, that's for sure. And on the 13th of March, I also attended the budget meeting here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Pearson.
March 2nd, I also joined in the personal health record meeting via Zoom, discussing the My Health Key program and how we move forward with that. That was followed with council and staff for a kind of a strat plan budget discussion. March 5th, I also attended the CBT grant presentations, and yes, there were some very good presentations put forward. So March 6th, community forest meeting. March 8th, kind of a preliminary talk with a teacher, Peter Tkach from the Valemount Secondary School, looking to put forward a plan for a youth council within the high school. March 9th, a rather early meeting with government officials at not 700 at the community forest, and that was with the ADM of Ministry of Forest, Mr. Eamon McDonough, and Prince George Forest Area Rep, Mr. Sean Rice, for discussions on community forest. Did a little tour of Cedar Valley Holdings Mill, and then they carried on with the rest of the industrial park tour. It was a great discussion. Having an ADM from the Ministry of Forestry that has a background in the valley, having lived here for several years, he knows the ins and outs, and it was a really good discussion. That afternoon, I had the pleasure of visiting the Valemount Elementary School, the grade 2 and 3 class, to discuss my work as a counselor, and they sat down with a bunch of questions and quizzed me, and yeah, it was a great day, a great afternoon. They had talked local government. They had built Snowball City. Everybody took part in the building of the city. They did some discussion on budgets, and at the end of the day, they had a surplus. So I'm hoping that they come and sit in these chairs in the future, because the future is very bright with that group. So Friday, March 10th, Trans-Canada Yellowhead Highway Association board meeting via Zoom. And then on the 13th, the Southeast BC Regional Connectivity Committee meeting via Zoom. And I was unable to attend the budget meeting here, so that's it for me.
Well, thank you very much. Councillor MacLean.
That's a hard act to follow. I too attended on March 2nd the budget strategic plan review. And on the 5th, I too attended the CBT Ready Grant presentations. It was well done. There was so many worthwhile, they were all very worthwhile projects, and it was enjoyable. One of the best I've attended, and I've attended a lot over the years. On the 6th, I had a Columbia Basin Treaty Local Government Committee meeting. And on the 13th, I attended the budget review meeting, and that was it for me.
Thank you. Any highlights from your LGC?
Yeah, the Linda Worley and Stan Dole have been, once again, the president and, or the chair and the vice chair by acclamation.
Excellent.
So, yeah.
Congratulations to the entire group. We do have a Columbia Basin Management Plan revision coming at us over the next 5 or 6 weeks. So I did spend some time on March 2nd with Mr. Peters, getting out some advertising for that. Our session here in Valemount will be on April the 26th. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors. We certainly cannot do it without the residents giving us some direction. And then we had the strategic priorities update with the staff-led session here. March 5th, I too took part in the Columbia Basin Trust Ready Grant public input session, echoing everyone's thoughts. Wow, some really cool things out there. March 7th, had a kickoff with Northern Health for the Connections, Northern Connections Advisory Bus Committee, or Bus Advisory Committee, pardon me. And then March 8th, I had a preliminary call with the auditors, our partners at KPMG, around finance checks and balances. March 9th, early morning start with Councillor Pearson with a briefing with ADM O'Donoghue and District Manager Sean Rice and reps from Valemount Confor. Later, I had a reception here in the chambers with the elected officials of Snowball City, with the elementary school, Mrs. Lawless's class. And then I signed up for a couple of webinars through UNBC and the Community Development Institute. There's this series of 5. So the first couple were readiness and transition. So large employer leaves town. We've been through that back in 2009. So looking to other communities and their, the Houstons, the Mackenzies, even Prince George for that matter, losing larger employers, what supports are out there from, a provincial transition team to UNBC themselves, some really cool supports. And then finish the day off with the Robson Valley Region Steering Committee. March 13th, at a Southeast BC Regional Connectivity Committee along with Councillor Pearson, and then another UNBC CDI webinar. This time was in for transition response. Getting those folks, getting a skill set out there or a list of a skill set where, not resume building, but, one-on-one, talking with folks who have just recently lost or not quite close enough to retirement that they will lose their job and they've been doing it for 30 years. What other skills might they be able to transition into another form of the workplace or another location within the workplace that perhaps Valemount, McBride, Robson Valley can support. And then budget presentation, always enthralling, and I mean that, later on the 13th. And yeah, that's about it for me. Motion to receive. Councillor Pearson, Councillor Blanchette, any discussion around, we've already called the quarter. I do want to just bring up council up to speed before I ask for receipt. So there were 6 items that were generally discussed at the briefing with the ADM and the DM from Prince George. We talked around a brief history of milling and manufacturing here in the valley, and looking at some trends where we had so many smaller mills back in the 60s and 70s and 80s. Then we went to these big, large super mills, or not even super mills. We went to centralized mills and then to these big super mills. And now we're moving back to those smaller, 26, 27 employees, annual. We talked about tabular rates and how they differ from the appraised stumpage. So we do paying pennies with the tabular stumpage, but, you know, versus the appraised stumpage would be, I mean, look at any BCTS block, a couple bucks versus 65, 68 per cubic meter. But there is no real appetite in Victoria to change COM4s from tabular to appraised, so really good news there. There is no question in Victoria's mind that and looking for a territorial stewardship plan from CIMP, which will be shared with partners from Barrier right through to McBride to see what that looks like here in the North Thompson and Robson Valleys. Also, old growth management areas will be open to forest health rationale. So if there's infestation of any form or damage from wildfire, that we can take action to make those old growth management areas better from a health standpoint, ecological standpoint, and we can provide rationale to the district manager. We're able to enter into those polygons and do what we can. And there was an agreement they are in agreement that obviously there is a valley-wide support and eventual alliance to having the old growth deferral and old growth strategy recommendations led and with our assistance with CIMP Nation. And then finally,